Roselle.
Going live. So it should be setting up to go live.
It says live on my screen.
Perfect. Okay, so hello. We are so happy to welcome you to the Escondido Public Library Virtual Author Chat Series, sponsored by the Friends of the Escondido Public Library and in partnership with the Ripped Bodice Bookstore. We are your hosts. I'm Jessica Buck, and over there is Cathy, Janovitz, and today we will be speaking to authors Roselle Lim and Aminah Mae Safi.
Hi. Yee.
Cathy.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was logging into Facebook and then I realized it wasn't on the right account because I have two accounts. Oh my gosh.
Right.
I'm already messing up. It's horrible.
This is why people come for the live.
It is. Yeah, they're here for this. It's not a mess up. It's part of the experience.
Yes. So before Jessica introduces our authors, we want you to know that during this chat, we will be monitoring the comments. So if you have any questions about what you hear here, or if you have any questions for our authors, please feel free to add those to the comments and we will try to get those answered.
Wonderful. Thank you, Cathy. So I'm going to introduce our two authors. Roselle Lim was born in the Philippines and immigrated to Canada as a child. She lived in North Scarborough, I hope I said that right, in a diverse Asian neighborhood. She found her love of writing by listening to her Lola, paternal grandmother's stories about Filipino folktales. Growing up in a household where Chinese superstition mingled with Filipino Catholicism, she devoured books about mythology, which shaped the fantasies in her novels. An artist by nature, she considers writing as painting with words. She is represented by Jenny Bent of the Bent Agency. Her first book, Natalie Tan's Book of Luck and Fortune, was published last year, and her next book, Vanessa Yu's Magical Paris Tea Shop, releases August 4th, 2020. And I love that you have the covers on the wall behind you.
Those are so good.
They're so beautiful.
They're great.
They're made of glass.
So fancy.
They are? How did you do that?
I know it's bad to plug like a product in there, but it's like, I think it's like fractal, or I have to get the right name, but they do make it out of glass and it looks really, really nice. I highly recommend it.
Yeah, I'll message you about that. That's really cool. They look beautiful.
That's amazing.
I mean, they're beautiful covers, but yeah, I can see like the texture on them. Sorry, I'm like such a like art nerd.
It's okay. Because now we're going to talk about you. Aminah Mae Safi is right. Talk about me.
Talk about me now.
American writer who explores art, fiction, feminism, and film. She loves Sophia. Is it Coppola? Coppola movies.
You don't know how to
endings.
say Coppola?
That's actually awesome. I think that warms my heart. Actually, I love it.
And the Fast and Furious franchise. She's the winner of the We Need Diverse Book Short Story Contest. Originally raised in Texas, she now lives in LA, California with her partner, a cat bent on world domination, and another cat who's just here for the snacks. Which one did we see before we went live?
You saw the one who's here for the snacks for sure. Yeah. She's a little goofball. Yeah. She's just here for love and snacks. The other one's the one that figures out like how to open doors and like get in things and like,
dangerous.
For sure. Yeah, if she had opposable thumbs, it'd be all over.
I'm just going to list out the books. She's the author of Not the Girls You're Looking For, Tell Me How You Really Feel, and the forthcoming This Is All Your Fault, coming out in October. And the reclaimed classics Robin Hood, Winter 2022. And I just want to say, This Is All Your Fault was also chosen as a Junior Library Guild selection, which I think is super fancy.
Yeah.
So welcome, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us today. And before I forget, I'm going to do the shout out to our coworker, Aspen, who is so excited to be watching this. So, hi, Aspen. Okay, so basically, how are you ladies today?
Good. That always feels like a weird answer because it's like I know there's like a ceiling on good right now, but like hanging in there. It feels So like, top of the bar, but thanks. Yeah. How are you, Roselle?
I'm good. I'm in the future because I'm on the Eastern time zone. So I just I
Cool.
made sure I had dinner before.
That's smart.
Yeah. Here.
Oh, we're so happy that you're joining us. Okay. So I guess we can get on to our questions. So we kind of introduced your books, but if you want to talk a little bit more about them, you can tell us about your books. I don't know who wants to go first.
Do you want to go first, Roselle?
Okay, I'll just go first. Okay, so for Vanessa, this is about Vanessa Yu, who has inherited the gift of clairvoyancy, but she doesn't have any command over it whatsoever. So she ends up spilling people's futures at family events, and it could be divorces, it could be affairs, it could be pretty embarrassing stuff, but also good stuff. And she's finding that it's ruining her life. And she needs lessons from her aunt, Evelyn, who happens to be the master clairvoyant in the family. Evelyn is moving to Paris, so she comes along to Paris to get these clairvoyancy lessons and finds out what she really wants from her life. And she takes command of her destiny there in the city of love and kind of finds a cute guy along the way as well.
That's awesome. I guess I'll just go in order. Not the Girls You're Looking For is my Ode to Mean Girls, Messy Friendships, and Bad Decisions. And it follows Lulu Saad in her junior year as she makes a mess of her friendships, family, and love life during the holy month of Ramadan. Tell Me How You Really Feel is a enemies to lovers rom-com featuring two girls on the opposite sides of the social scale as they work together to make a movie and try very hard not to fall in love. Spoiler, they fall in love. It's a rom-com. It's My Love of the Paris Rory ship too is in there from Gilmore Girls, and it's also a love letter to Los Angeles. And then This Is All Your Fault is actually set in Chicago, and it's three girls who set out to save their dying Chicagoland indie in 24 hours. And it's akin to like Empire Records in a bookstore, where they kind of learn about each other. Yeah. As they
I'm so excited.
Yeah, so it was really fun, and it's got 3 points of view, and you cycle through them and you see the way they see each other and the way they see themselves. And that was like a very fun and challenging writing exercise. So that was cool. I'm gonna put them spine out. There we go. So yeah, those are my book babies. Yeah.
Yeah, you guys' books, they have the best covers. I love them. And what's even better is sometimes you see a book that has a great cover and then you read it and you're like, that wasn't as good as I thought it was going to be. But your books are like, great cover and it's a great book.
Thank you. I've had the same cover designer for all 3, so it's been really cool to be able to work with her and like iterate on each time. And obviously so much of the work is hers, but she really gets what's in the book and like how to translate that visually. And that's always so cool to see those designers be able to do that, because it's a real art to be able to translate what's inside a book and then make it look like that on the outside.
So you got to see the covers throughout the process.
Yeah, they usually, for me, they give me like comps of what they're thinking of and like kind of like, here's a direction. And I'm like, I'm always like, these are great because Liz does a great job. Yeah. And then with the cover shoots, they've always shown me like the models that they're hiring, and they've shown me like some of the day of like photo shoot stuff, which is cool to watch while it's happening. And then the illustration was totally different in that it was like, we want to do it illustrated. Here's what we're thinking. Here's some artists. And like, it's always a fun conversation. It's not something that I get like a lot of say in terms of like determining, but I think it's really cool that they're always so inclusive and they're always so like welcome to me, like making pin boards of what my characters look like and like what their hair color is, like they care, and that's very cool. I feel very lucky.
And I'm guessing the same person did the illustrations for
these two, it's Vicky Chu who's the cover artist.
So good.
For those two. And the thing is, for the debut, I was given a choice between 5, and I ended up choosing this. But for this one, it was just kind of like perfect on the first go. And they use French blue as well for. And what I love about this one though is the spine.
Oh, that's so cute.
The
Yeah.
spine is so like it complements this so well.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I'm really happy that Vicky is kind of like she's Asian, so she really got what the material was like, and yeah, it was great.
That question wasn't on the list, but I really wanted to ask it since we started talking a little bit about the covers. And
it's like a fun part of how the sausage is made in books that like most people don't get to see, like to like lift the hood up and know, you know? Yeah.
So another thing is throughout this whole process, I was of course stalking you a lot because I wanted to figure out like, okay, what kind of questions am I going to ask them? What are people talking about? So I spent a lot of time on your guys' websites, and both of them are beautiful. Do you do most of the work on your website, or does someone help you? Because it seems like they're really well put together and there's always something new.
Squarespace.
Yeah, same with mine.
But their stuff is like, it's hard to like make it ugly or break it, and you can update it as like the Robin Hood book gets announced. Like I can put that in and I don't have to like talk to anyone. I just can like go in, plug it in, and it works really well. And then you just kind of like pick a color scheme. So
it's the same with me, Squarespace.
So helpful.
Simple
yeah,
and
if you need. Mm-hmm.
And I love your frequently asked questions.
Thank you. That was fun. I love gifts though. Like gifts are definitely like my love language, I think. Because they're like visual. Okay.
Yeah, visuals are important, especially right now. We need distractions.
Squirrel.
Right? Oh, Cathy, do you want to ask one of the actual questions that we came up with?
We haven't gotten any questions yet on Facebook, so.
Do you want to number 4?
Yeah, sure. I can read. That's what Mama told me. Okay. I made myself laugh. I know. Can you talk us through your writing process from the first spark of an idea to having your first completed draft?
All right. I think it kind of iterates every time, but I think it's been funny because I'm in the middle of drafting now, and there's something about like pandemic writing that is very different than any other kind of writing I've done. But like largely I start from character, and to kind of rein myself in, I try to pick like a type of story essentially. So the first book is in my mind like a friendship book, and kind of like I wanted to do a story that was about that last 10 minutes of Mean Girls, you know, where she's like, I'm gonna suck the poison out. I wanted the book to be like largely about that. So like making kind of like expanding that idea from like 10 minutes to a whole book. And then the second one I wanted to be a rom-com, and then just tell me how you really feel. And then This Is All Your Fault, which is the third one, I wanted to be about the moment like a girl gang forms, and that like sense of like people who feel like they don't belong together, like learning how they mesh and having this common goal that allows them to like see each other in ways they never would have. Because like I can probably write 200,000 words on just like people sitting around chatting, like watching a movie, eating pizza, like just like classic nothing indie films for hours and hours on end. So like I like to give myself those constraints so I don't just like go off the rails and have no plot. And that really helps me like understand who each character is, and then I just kind of dive in from there. I listened to a first draft podcast where Emily Wibberley and Austin Sigmund Broca talk about how they think of their outline as a really short first draft because they write these like really long monster outlines. And I loved that. So I always think it really helps me feel like an outline is not this like really set in stone document, but instead this like living, breathing thing that I can work through and change. So I've put that into the process of like, it's a short draft and it helps you kind of start telling the story to yourself so you know where you're going. And then I often circle back and just like revise and go forward and revise and go forward and revise and go forward until I have like a draft 0, and then I go through the whole thing, and then it goes into my editor, and then she and I do that back and forth, which is fun. I love editing. I'm always happy to be in revisions.
Right. What about you, Roselle? Do you have the same process for all the books, or does it change?
It's the same, basically. It's a lot more kind of, I guess it would be a little bit more clinical, in that I always start with an elevator pitch first, condense the whole thing, the premise, into one short sentence, and then it's a longer blurb, and then it's a synopsis, and I run that through my agent and eventually my editor. And then I write the whole thing. And one of the things that has changed, though, in my process is that I've started using a bullet journal to basically chronicle how I'm doing. Like, it's got collages in there.
Hey boys.
I find it easier to have like a physical picture of your character so that it's easy to describe them. Yep.
Yep.
So I do that. I do like everything in my journal is character bios, themes, character lists, playlists in here, a lot of world building stuff. I even do chapter by chapter breakdowns of what part of the plot goes in there, how many words are going in, if it has a subplot, the main plot, what is the tension, conflict level per chapter. Like, I've started getting a lot more hardcore about it, because I used to pants everything, and it got me in so much trouble that I'm like, my agent was like, it might be a good idea to break it down into like beat sheets or even scenes lists, and having that all organized helped me just know where I'm going, instead of like, it's not that I stick to it like a lot. If something happens while I'm drafting and I need to insert a new scene or whatever, I will put it in there. But at least it's more of a general guideline goalpost.
Yeah.
I guess as I'm going through the novel, that's.
Yeah, you can just like write instead of make decisions and write, which always makes it take longer.
Yeah.
So really fascinating. I love hearing about what's going on and how you guys plan, because the amount of work that goes into these things that we read and enjoy is just mind-boggling. And I know that all the readers just appreciate all the work you do, because what we get in the end is amazing, and we really enjoy them. So thank you for all of that hard work. We appreciate it. Okay, so let's do another one of the questions. So what was important about your main character's journeys in your book that you either struggled with or was very important for you to get across to the reader? And who went first last time? Okay, so Roselle, do you want to answer this question first?
My main character for Vanessa, she is where Natalie is more like me, Vanessa is not. She's a lot more confident, more of, to me, a wish fulfillment kind of character, versus the other one who, I'm writing about somebody who I know has a great family background, doesn't have much emotional baggage other than the fact that she tends to blurt out fortunes. Other than that, like, she's pretty, confident and easygoing. For her, the biggest, her journey is trying to find out what she wants from her life or where she wants to go. Basically, like her, she wants to shape her own destiny and not be content with what she believes her family wants of her or is expected of her. So that's it.
And tell me how you really feel. It was fun because I got to play with 2 points of view, and Senna is really struggling with that. And it's something I struggled with too, that idea. And I've seen people where it's like, what do you want to do for the rest of your life? And you, like, I feel like it really crashes down on you your senior year, where like it feels like everyone has it figured out. And I really wanted to take her as this girl who really looks like she has everything figured out, right? She's like, I'm going to be pre-med and I'm going to be a surgeon and I'm going to go to Princeton. And like, she has that like appearance of like really having it all together. And like, she's having this crisis moment of like, what if that's not what I want? And how do I know that that's what I want? And so I wanted to give her the room to try something, right? Like, it's not that she, and this was like, I think really difficult because it wasn't like she's going to throw off the weight of being a doctor and that's not what she wants, but more giving her the freedom to be able to try to see what the day-to-day life of that might look like and give herself room to breathe and come to that decision in a more measured way rather than from this like identity. And I think especially at that age, we always ask kids like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And so they think it's like, I am someone who's going to be a lawyer. I'm someone who's going to be a fireman, right? Like it feels like this like identity marker that they hold on to. So having her like let go of that and learn what that is was really rewarding. And then for Rachel, I really wanted her to struggle with how to make good art, but not in the way, and I read so many books growing up about like people wanting to be writers, which I love, like obviously love that as someone who grew up and became a writer. I didn't want her struggle to be, will I ever do this thing? But like, how do I do this thing well? And how do I make a film and do this collaborative art well while also staying true to who I am? And that was really satisfying because for her, it was like learning how to like take on a leadership and a creativity role and like model that almost for herself and learn what that looks like for herself without compromising what she believes in. So that was like really satisfying to get to do on either end of those two young women. Yeah.
Looks like we don't have any Facebook questions yet, so I'm going to ask another question. So, and I kind of want to add to this question now that we've been chatting for a little bit, because, so basically, I want to know, what was your journey to actually being a writer, getting your first work published, and what was the moment when you actually felt like, oh, I'm a writer? That kind of like spark or like that moment of pride, or like, oh look, there's my book. So that's what I want to know. That's my question. So let's go with Aminah, because you're smiling and you look like you want to share something.
Oh no, I think I was really resistant to being a writer. I think I tried to be everything but a writer for so long. And I think that I don't know that I had a moment where I was suddenly like, oh, I'm a writer, this is it, I have a published book. But I think that the more I do this work and the more of a body of work I build, the more I feel familiar with the day-to-day task of writing and the like, I know what I'm doing. I've done this before. Even if I get stuck, I've been stuck before. And this is not the end of writing because I'm stuck on one day or stuck on one chapter or like something's not working and I have to go back. So I think that there's just this level of confidence that experience and that work builds. And I think that that's one of the most, and I think that's why I do think about like with Senna, like that day-to-day living and working and like what that looks like, because like that's been really satisfying and building that up has been really satisfying. And I find figuring out what that looks like for each person is so different because there's no wrong way, I think, to write a book, and so many people do it so many different ways. And I love hearing about that. For my first book, it was 7 years from when I started it. I just kept reworking on it. So I started it in grad school when I thought I wanted to be a professor. And I just kept working on it. And 5.5 years later, I found an agent, and then it sold after that. And it was like 7 years end to end from like working on it. And then the next ones were quicker, obviously, because you build relationships and you work with people. But I would say that there's always kind of a longer build on that like first moment when you're like, no, I'm going to do this. Like just kind of humming in the back of your head and ignoring it the way I did for years.
No, I love it. And okay, what about you, Roselle? Was it a laundry to be a writer? Was it something you always wanted to do? And was there a moment when you really felt like you were a writer, or is it just kind of like Aminah, where it's like, it's just a thing? Like, I'm just a writer.
For me, I like writing was something that I wanted to do, but it was really hard in that when I came to Canada, my English was okay. Like I managed to bypass ESL. Like I thought I was gonna land in ESL the way that my cousins did when I came. And learning English, like from like my first language is like a dialect of Chinese and Tagalog, which is a Filipino language, and there are no tenses. So that was the first lesson of grammar that I was like, what is this? Like have, to, have, had, and like all of these tenses. And I'm like, oh Lord, right? Like I couldn't figure it out. And then French came in and it's like, learn this other language too, because you just came and you got to start that. And in my journey, it's just I've had teachers tell me like, your English isn't good enough. Like you will never be a writer. Like it's one of those things where I'm like, okay, do I let this break me, or do I be like, I'll show you one day? And I just kind of kept going at it and just writing. And in high school, I was still writing romance novels. I don't write, like they suck. Like nobody's ever going to see these drafts ever. But like, I just continued writing. And for my first novel, for Natalie Tan, for my process, I left my first agent and I had to write something new, obviously to query again. And that was that book. And I think Aminah and I were in DV Pit, weren't we?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah. I entered that and I revised this book for 2 years before it went on submission. That's the background behind it. And it sold, and I'm really grateful. And recently I get to write 2 more books as well. Like I found out this year, yay, I get to write 2 more books. But writing has always been a very hard thing. It's never been an easy thing. Most of the time when I'm typing, it's one hand like this and the other hand typing. But that's just the way it's always been, like one hand like this and just type, right? But what I say, like writing to me is just it's a career like I've always thought I never could get. I don't know if I feel like a writer, like it's still all it's just something that you do, I guess now. Maybe it's because I take it a little bit for granted. It's just something that I do.
Oh, I love that. I'm so happy that you didn't listen to people and that you kept writing, because if you had listened to them, then we wouldn't have your books, and that would be a sad world. Oh, it looks like we have a Facebook question. Cathy, do you want to ask it?
Oh, yes. So Olivia asks, can you talk about the food descriptions in your books? They're both so good. She didn't specifically say. I'm assuming she means Roselle, but.
I write a menu before I write the book. Like facts. I write the menu before I write the book. Like I'm like, okay, for this book, I'm like, it's all gonna be Chinese food. That's what that book is about. This book, I'm like, I need French pastries. This is what this book's gonna be about. The one that I'm writing right now is gonna be full of candy. Just that's the spoiler. It's all candy. But for me, like I just really love food. And the biggest compliment that I could ever get is somebody saying, oh my God, I read your book and I had to order Chinese, or it made me so hungry. And yeah, when you're reading this, go have some like cookies or something beside you, because it would be like, it's that, like, for me, food is one of those things that it transcends culture, language. Like you don't even have to speak a word, and you could do, like, all you have to do is present food in front of somebody, and it's a gesture of hospitality, of friendship. even if you have an argument with your friend and you're like, look, I got you your favorite chocolate cake. Like, I'm sorry, here you go. But you don't have to say that. You just slide the cake over. And it's kind of like this unspoken thing. It's that, like, I just really love food, and I think it shows.
I feel like we need to do a book display for the library now of books that will make you hungry.
Mm-hmm.
It's a real thing. Yeah.
It is. I mean, I just recently read a book, and it had nothing to do with food. It was a young adult novel by A.S. King, but one of the characters worked at Arby's. And so they kept talking about the food. And I'm like, I want Arby's now.
Mm-hmm.
Right, they should get paid.
I had that with writing Tell Me How You Really Feel. There was like a frozen yogurt scene, and every time I got to it, I was just like, I have to have frozen yogurt now. Every time I was like, I gotta go get frozen yogurt. Like, I've literally generated my own craving for this every single time I get to it. It was brutal.
I love it. Okay, so the book display is gonna have the books and then food that we pair with the books. That way people know going in.
Perfect.
Get ready, have this in the freezer, order takeout.
We could do
Chef kiss.
We could do the book and takeout. Like, pick up the book and we've made you food. It's a library food.
A new meaning to library to go, am I right?
Or we order it and it gets to the library at the same time that you do.
I think that one's
Rep shows up, and then we pair you together, and then off you go.
I think it'd be a perfect blind date option where you have, like, for Aminah, like a frozen yogurt cup, and then you have the book wrapped in brown paper underneath. It kind of shows you what, but obviously, like, it'd be good to get like something like candy or something that'll be non-perishable that you can put with the food. But yeah, it'd be a great.
Yeah.
Or even like froyo would go badly very quickly for sure.
Oh, that reminds me, I should get. Never mind. Sorry.
We're live. This is what happens when you're live. You have thoughts and they come out.
It's thoughts. No, I realized we're giving away a copy of Tell Me How You Really Feel for our teen book giveaway. And so if we're doing one of the chats, I make sure to read the book and then talk about it. But I'm like, oh wait, I should, that you've mentioned that. I'm like, I should get like a Menchie's or someplace gift card. But then wait a minute, we have a local gelato place that's right across the street from the library. And I realized it already has a $5 gift card in it from our Esco Gelato. So I'm like, oh, well, that takes care of that. Ta-da!
That's it. You already nailed it.
Oh my God, before I even read the book.
Perfect.
She just knew.
Hence the froyo.
Yeah, it emanated out. My cravings for frozen yogurt were so strong.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to ask Roselle, for the menu that you made for your book, were there actual like specific recipes or just like a list of different kinds of food?
It's a list of different kinds of food, but I also have, it's just a generic list, but every dish has a purpose. There's symbolism behind it. So I have to make sure that everything on that list has significance, if that makes any sense.
Yes.
Even with the candy that I'm going to be using in this book, I have a running list of them. And one of my ideas is to actually do a giveaway with all of the candy, like a candy box to go with the book.
Cute.
Yeah. Do you like have candy recipes that you're going through right now, or do you just like base it on candies you like to eat? I just have to.
It's candies. It's all mostly Asian candies, like Japanese and Chinese candies that I could go. I haven't been to an Asian grocery store in a while, but normally I go and I just go for a snack run, and it goes inside like my pantry, and my pantry has been bare for months now, but I usually have like something to snack on most of the time when I'm writing. Do you have something that you eat usually when you're drafting?
I mean, anything that's nearby, frankly. Like if it's nearby, I will for sure chow down on it. Like, so no, I tend to drink coffee in the morning, tea in the evening, and then like I just like graze and snack as I get hungry. So like you could put a bag of cookies in front of me, but you could also put a bag of baby carrots, and like I would the behavior would not change. I would just like mindlessly like grab what was ever in front of me. Like it could be chips, hot Cheetos, almonds, like it doesn't matter. I think it's like a crunchy thing. Like I think I want to crunch something, and like I just could literally eat 2 pounds of baby carrots, or like a whole bag of Oreos. It doesn't really matter.
My gosh, you guys are making me hungry.
That's like nausea inducing, but like writers are very normal people, everyone.
I'm hungry now. I'm gonna have to put a little like warning. If you watch this interview, you're gonna get hungry. So have snacks nearby.
I did have a fun moment with that where has anyone seen Notting Hill at all?
Yes.
Okay, when the guy comes into the travel bookshop and he keeps asking for like non-travel books, and he's like,
"Do you want to John Grisham?"
Yeah, he's like, "What about John Grisham?"
No, we don't have that because we are a travel
bookshop. Yeah. So I wanted to like have a moment where I winked at that. So someone comes into the bookstore asking for Italian food, and they're like, "Okay, here's the section where the like cookbooks are," and they're like, "No, I was like looking for spaghetti," and they're just like sitting there like, "This is a bookstore. We don't have that here." And the person's just like, "What about John Grisham? What about pizza? Like, it's okay, you don't have spaghetti. What about pizza?" And she's just like, "I think I've lost my mind." Because I just loved that, like, someone comes into a store and they're just not registering what's happening. And it's always a good bit of comedy for me.
We get that sometimes in the library, so.
Do people come in asking for spaghetti?
We get all kinds of questions. Okay, let me do this.
I gotta know now.
Just sometimes people ask us anything because I guess we can look anything up and we know everything.
Right. It's like
I want to
Reddit
know.
live.
I was gonna ask. I want to know if anybody ever treated you like WebMD. Because it's cheaper than going to a doctor.
They try.
We could have a whole separate virtual chat series just on the questions that we get asked.
How many medical questions I've been asked while at the library help desk.
I'm like,
you take my pulse? I think it's a little fast.
I'm like, I can find you a book or an article, but I can't give you. I'm not a doctor.
Well, I figured you'd also get it. Can you take a look at it? I can show you. I can lift my shirt up to see what I'm referring to. Maybe you could give me some text and you'd be like, no.
My librarian face would come on like immediately.
Sir, because it's always a sir, right?
You're like, no. Like, what else can I help you with? It's like, I gotta divert. Like, let's just divert this conversation. Like, is there anything else?
Would you like some baby carrots?
I have got a 2-pound bag of them. How are you feeling?
Okay, one of the questions we have. What is the #1 piece of advice you give to an aspiring author?
I say this one all the time. Have food. Button share is always my thing. Right? It doesn't. Sometimes you just have to sit down and start writing it. And like, there's no wrong way to write a book, and you can listen to anyone else's process and try things and learn things. And a lot of writing rules are like pirate code. If it works for you, great. And otherwise they're like guidelines. And if they fall behind, let them get left behind. But like just putting your butt in the chair and just writing. I was on a panel the other day where they were talking about just doing these 12-minute intervals, essentially. Like they just write for like sit down for 12 minutes because it's like it removes all barriers, and if once they're done they can be done, or they can do another 12-minute sprint. But like just like really putting your butt in the chair and doing it, even if it is 12 minutes out of a time, eventually you'll get to the end.
My advice is more not, it's not related to writing itself, more like how to cope with the business of writing, whether you're querying or not. Like, I think it's really, really important, one, to have hobbies that doesn't involve writing. Like, you need to unplug. You really do need to take some time off and let your brain marinate. And the second thing would be to have friends that are not at all into the writing, that you can get like a really good, perspective on what you're going through, and that there is life outside of writing, that there is both, that both can exist. Because I find that if you put a lot of querying writers, you put so much pressure on yourself. Oh, I need to get requests. I need to do this. I have to have this. And that, all of that, like, you need to have somebody outside of that, like a friend that would say, hey, I could see that you're working a little too hard. Let's go see a movie. Or do you want to, just to kind of just get that it is very, very important, but it's not the only thing. That's it's more of a self-care kind of mental health tip for me.
And do you guys have like little support groups of like authors or just like people in the industry that you're like, I just need someone to talk to right now, or I just need someone to look at this, I just need someone to read this, I need someone to tell me I'm not crazy? Like, do you guys have those little support groups like that?
Yeah, I always say have like a group chat. I think a group chat is always helpful for stuff like that. Not anything like huge, but like just like 3 or 4 people that you guys can just like lean on each other, or just chat about. And sometimes it's industry stuff, and sometimes it's day-to-day stuff, and sometimes it's like, my cats are being really cute, so here's a photo of them. Like, it doesn't always have to be about writing, but it is nice to feel connected to other writers in that way, and also having people outside of that you chat to, that, like, again, like Roselle was saying, that you don't know anything about your books and just love you for you and don't care one way or the other. They're proud of you, but they don't actually care about like the world of books in the same way.
Yeah, definitely. Like, support groups are so important. I've got friends that I text every single day, because there are some things that you shouldn't, like, because you're a writer, you have a social media presence. If you talk about it with your friends, you don't need to go tweet about, like, there's a lot of things that might be bothering you. Like, you need to talk to somebody about it. It's sort of that whole check yourself, like, your friends will check you, will pull you back, and like give you a bit of perspective before you do anything foolish. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where I think it's also great, like, when you vent to them, they understand what you're going through. You don't have to explain and all of that. And if you're like having a rough day, oh, I've got a rejection, or I really can't get like this book, it's not coming out fast enough, and my deadline's coming, then you have somebody who completely understands that situation. And yeah, like, it's writing, like Aminah said, like, it's a solitary thing, so you have to create community. Like, you have to make an extra effort to create community outside of what you're doing.
Yeah, dropping it in the group thread first before you go on Twitter is like the number. It's probably the other number one.
Yeah, there's all kinds of stuff on Twitter lately, especially.
Oh man. But it helps. I think Roselle's right. It just helps to like feel like there are people who have your back. And I think a lot of times it's like you're just having a rough time with something in the work, and you just need someone that just like validates that it's okay, it's hard today. Like, really, that's a lot of it. It's just like you're struggling through something in the story, and you just need someone to be like, yeah, I've been there, and you're gonna be okay. Or like, yeah, it sucks right now, but like, you will get through it. You've gotten through it before. And then it just helps you feel less alone, because it feels like such solitary work when you're like really in your own head, and you're really close to the story, and you're really close to the characters, and you feel like you don't know what the problem is, but you can tell it's there, or whatever the note is.
Especially right now, with everything has to be virtual, because we can't go anywhere. Library's not open.
Yeah. Do you miss seeing like patrons and like chatting with them during the day?
I do. Right when we closed to the public, it was kind of like a little bit of a deep breath to kind of like, okay, I can relax for a little bit. I won't have to constantly be interrupted, because when you're at the library, we have the person that's scheduled to be like on the desk to do reference, and then there's everyone in the back, but it's all fair game. Like if you're back there, you're gonna help if they need help. So it's constantly moving, constantly talking to people. So it was kind of nice in the beginning just to kind of take a break from it. But now I think we all miss helping people. We're all wondering about our regular patrons, because we can't just like reach out to them because, you know, privacy. So we're wondering, like, are they okay? How are they doing? Because we're so used to seeing them every day, the people that come in, and we know they want the certain paper, so we have the paper ready for them. So it's just, I think we all kind of miss those kinds of interactions, but it's just weird too.
A community hub, essentially. Like it holds books and information, but it's also like a community hub.
It's a very social job. So it's weird that I haven't been able to like talk to people. Well, except my coworkers, which I love to talk to, like Cathy. But
yeah,
weird.
I do. You know, go ahead.
That's all. It's weird.
Oh, yeah. I realized that with I do a reading for the Studio City Public Library. We've been reading like the Jeeves books once a week, and it's just been so nice to like check in with the same people, like, and see their face at 10 o'clock every do you know what I mean? Like, it's not even like the story's nice, but it's just like, oh, you're doing okay, hi. like that's the real treat of it. It's just like seeing people and they're like out of your routine but in your routine. That's nice.
No, yeah. And we had to quickly translate from completely in-person programming to completely virtual. And we did it really quick, but like we've done story times, which have been fabulous. And all of our book clubs went virtual because we didn't want to stop having those. So thankfully we had Zoom, and it's been really fun because not everyone can always get to the book club meetings when they're in person. There's people that have come to the book club meetings that live nowhere near the library. They just wanted to talk about the book. I had someone from India at my last romance book club meeting who just wanted to talk about the book. And he was like, hey, I can't travel to the library, so I'm happy that it's virtual. So it's really cool. So in a good way, we've been able to reach people that we never reached before, but we also miss seeing everyone. And at first we were all mainly at home, but now we're kind of back in the library. And this is a good transition to our Facebook question.
Oh my gosh, here it comes. So Jade says, really enjoy your work. Have you taken up any new or maybe resumed some hobbies while you're all hunkering?
Did we lose her? Cathy?
Was the question about hobbies? If we're
basically since quarantine, like, have you resumed hobbies or started new hobbies?
Sorry.
No, Cathy.
What? Huh? Am I here?
You're back.
You froze, and then you did a robot
froze
voice.
And we were all worried. Yeah.
That's awesome. But yes, Jade wanted to know if you guys have resumed any old hobbies or started any new hobbies due to the quarantine.
You want to take that one, Roselle, first?
I got a ton of hobbies. I always have a ton of hobbies. Normally, I do embroidery. I don't know if for people who follow me on Twitter, I've done embroidery and some drawing, embroidery, illustration. I just have to express myself in like visual arts usually. And the one thing that I started taking up recently is etching. There are books you can get. If you can give me a second, I can show you.
Yeah.
I feel like it's show and tell now.
It is. I do love this. Oh, there it is.
Ooh.
Kawaii. Oh, cute.
So it's etching. You get the wooden tool. and you scratch off whatever you want to scratch off.
Wow.
That's very cool.
So I've done this. I've also done sticker mosaics, which are like, think about it, painting by stickers. And
That sounds
you
cool.
get little pieces, you get geometric shapes that you lay down like a cross or almost like a jigsaw puzzle.
Yeah.
And you put it together, and there are birds and landscapes, and that's like, if you ever need a hobby, just hit me up on Twitter. I have like a gajillion suggestions, but that's what I've been doing. That's what I've been doing lately.
I've been doing cross stitch. So yeah, but that was something I always did as a kid. But like I've needed something to do with my hands, so it's been cross stitching, and crossword puzzles have helped a lot. Like something to do with my hands and like engaging my brain that isn't just like, you know, like being sucked into like a news feed for 8 hours and sobbing. So that those helped. I also started like painting. It's just another shade of white, but my office. So like I've been like I like rearrange furniture. I like move things around in space. So that's like a lot of the stuff I've been doing is just making the house feel new by moving where the chair is. It really does work, by the way. It feels like a whole new room. I don't know why. Yeah.
Ooh, we have another question that I'm excited about because I was going to ask it. So sweet. Cathy, do you want to read it or do you want me to read it?
Go ahead. I'm just typing it in. So I
Okay.
can have it for later.
So Emily asks, what are you reading? And do you have any recommendations for people who have read and loved your books and want something similar?
Ooh, okay, well, I'm in the middle of writing and doing research for my Robin Hood book. So I'm currently reading this, which is like The Crusades Through Arab Eyes. So that's a history book that I'm reading. But I recently loved Late to the Party by Kelly Quinlan. I'm in the middle of You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. Yeah, so like those are great and delightful romances and YA books and written by queer women. That's what I've got off the top of my head. There's so many good books right now. I feel it's a middle grade, but I just got Brandy Colbert's The Only Black Girls in Town, and I'm super excited because I love a good middle grade. Even though I don't write middle grade at all. I can't get that like sweetness of tone that I love so much whenever I read it, or that like goofiness that's so delightful. It's such an art. What about you, Roselle?
I've been reading this, which is
Ooh.
the little book of Hugo, The Danish Way to Live Well, the one about happiness. And
yeah. Okay.
I don't know. I think it's something that I thought, like, I struggle with anxiety and depression. So I figure this pandemic hasn't made it any easier. So I figure, might as well try this book that's supposed to be the Danish way of living well, which is like how to find happiness basically in little things. And it was a really good book. I finished that one. And what else did I finish recently? Let's Talk About Race by Ijeoma Oluo. I finished recently, and Ransom Riggs is The Library of Souls, because I'm behind. I am like, I'm still 2 books behind. I think I'm missing the map book and the Conference of Birds, which came out this year. So that's what I've been reading. As for recommendations of books that are similar, that would, like, I think Sarah Smith's book coming out in October, Simmer Down. It's about a Filipino in Hawaii with a food truck romance. So if you like food, I would recommend that one. I think Sonali Dev's books have always been mentioned with mine. So I'm guessing those
Also
ones readers would like.
Yeah.
So I think people would like that. I'm trying to think of any other foodie books off the top of my head, but those 2 are I probably might think of it later because that's what always happens, but those are the ones right now.
There's also a debut book, A Taste of Sage by Yafa Santos. We had her for a chat. It feels like so long ago, but it was only a few months ago. That one is also has a lot of food and there's chefs, and it's like they're cooking and there's love, and it's really good. So that one would, I would say, be similar as well.
Oh, I
That
just
makes me
remembered
also
one.
recommend. Oh, go ahead.
Okay, let me just get this one out quick before I forget. The Secret Recipes of Sophie Valroux by Samantha Varon. It's coming out in September. That one is set in France. Again, food. Like, it's about a chef. So, okay, go ahead, Aminah.
Oh, hold on, I'm just making sure that I was just thinking about food, and I was thinking about Maureen Gu's book that's set in a food truck in LA, and like I just wanted to make sure I didn't like go with the wrong name, and now my brain is like doing that thing where-
I think I know which one you're talking about.
The Way You Make Me Feel. There we go.
Yeah.
I was like, I believe the thing called Love was stuck in my head. I'm like, no, that's the K-drama one. And I was like, what's I was like, the food one is The Way You Make Me Feel. And Nisha Sharma has My So-Called Bollywood Life, which has romance and also like these like little like Bollywood like blog reviews that are like littered throughout every chapter, which is also fun if you're into film at all. Yeah. I don't know, there's so many good books. It's like, it's so hard.
It is
like,
hard.
How long do you have?
I'll go back after this is up, and I'll put all of the books that we've talked about like in the comments so people can actually like just copy and paste it.
Good idea.
Oh, and Austin Sigmund Broca and Emily Wibberley's Time of Our Lives is actually like a beautiful lyrical romance, and also that like end of college end of high school, start of college feel of two kids on a road trip trying to figure out what their future is. That's really good, like similar to like the stuff Sona's going through. Yeah. Thank you for letting me add another one.
Okay, let's see if we have any more. We had some good Facebook questions this time. Really enjoyed them.
Any more?
I think. Okay, so then we can go on to our kind of closing questions, which one of them someone already asked, so we're good for that. Okay, so the question that I always love asking at the end of these chats is, what is your favorite library memory? And whoever wants to go first can go first. No pressure.
Well, one day.
My favorite one I actually still remember is the day that I got my library card. I had to have been like 7 or 8, and we had like a community library that like, and this is so because Houston has a lot of bayous, so like you had this little pedestrian footbridge that you could cross to like cross the little like tiny bayou in my neighborhood, and then like go get to the library. And I just remember like obviously like filling out the form with my mom, and like she had to sign it because she was an adult, but like I just remember like the librarian really being like, this is your library card, and like you are responsible for this stuff. So even though like it's your mom paying the fine, like these are your books and they're being checked out in your name. And I just remember feeling like it's like that like kind of wonderful responsibility you get as a kid, that like somebody is trusting you to like check out a book in your name and like you can return it. And I know that it's like getting like your own key to the house, and like you can let yourself, you know what I mean? Like it just felt like that like fun responsibility. And I always remember it because it came in this like, it was like paper, and then it came in this like little plastic sleeve that you like stuck it in, and then like, and it was red, and yeah, I know it was like very tactile, and it's just like, it's always stuck in my mind as like, I am grown up and responsible because I have a library card. And that's my favorite library memory. It's like, I can check out all the books that I want. I'm sure there was a limit, but in my head, I can check out the books that I want.
Oh, I love that. I love it when kids sign up for library cards. It's one of the cutest things.
They're adorable.
The last library I worked at, I actually got to help people sign up for cards. I don't get to do that much now because I'm in like a different department and I can't do that. But I loved handing them the Sharpie. Like, okay, this is a Sharpie. It's permanent. You get to sign your name on the back of the card. The kids would be like, I'm gonna sign my name, Mom.
I'm gonna sign my name. I know, I was so ready. I was like, I can sign this. This is my name, not yours. It's like,
It's the cutest. I love it.
I was ready.
What about you, Roselle? Do you have a favorite library memory or just a memory that is positive about the library?
For mine, it was a little bit bittersweet because when I grew up in Toronto in Scarborough, which is like a really diverse, especially North Scarborough, mostly Asian, East Asian, Southeast Asian, South Asian there. And when I went to the library, I remember getting there for the first time. And this is, I wanted to obviously get better at English. And the best way to do that is to read. And going to the library and looking at the shelves, looking at the age appropriate books. And one of the first books I picked up was A Babysitter's Club with Claudia on the cover. And I was like, she looks like me. Oh my God. Like I was just, I love those. I love that series. That was one of the biggest things. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. So I kept taking books out, asking the librarian, what is the maximum amount of books I can take home? Making sure I bring like a tote bag or something appropriate to carry all of that home. And like last year before my debut, I went back to my old branch, the one that I grew up in. And I found the same librarian still working there. Because she started working when I came to Canada in the 90s. That's when she started working and I saw her and I'm like, you look familiar. And she's like, so we talked and she's like, yeah, I think I remember you. And it was just really cool going back and seeing that because the library was important. It was where my parents and my aunt went. I remember going to get help for her resume because they have all of these programs and everything and you're helping the community so much. And yeah, like I love the library.
I gotta ask, have you watched the Netflix?
It's so good. It is so good. It is so wholesome. Oh my gosh. Like I sat my daughter down and I'm like, you have to watch this. And she's like,
you must
why?
love this.
Well, the thing is the first episode is all about Christy and she couldn't identify with Christy that much. So she's like, oh, it's going to be that. I'm like, no, you have to sit and stare. Claudia's number 2. Sit your butt down and watch. And she actually did get into it. And she started she watched the rest of it with me. And I'm like, this is great. And I'm like, now, will you watch the kind of iffy 90s version with me? Like the movie. Can you watch that with me? That one's the one that I grew up with. And she goes, no.
The 90s one is pretty delightful though.
It was cute. It's the one that we grew up with, right? So I was like, oh, it was really cute. But she's like, no. She's like, I like this one. This one I'll watch with you, but I'm not gonna watch that one. And I'm like, all right, okay.
I love it. No.
No.
No,
I have a boundary
thinking
there.
about
It's a solid no for me.
Bye.
Bye. I checked my schedule and that's a no.
It's like I hope that she would I hope she would like the same stuff that I would. Like I sat her down and I'm like, this is Sailor Moon. I think you should check it out. She looked at it and she's like, the animation isn't as good. I'm like, I understand it's from 1,000 years ago and you're used to you're spoiled with all this, the more polished stuff now. And she's like, no. And I'm like, oh man.
It is amazing how animation how much it's changed since then. But I still love watching the old stuff. It's so great.
I do too. But I loved old movies as a kid too. So I was just like a movie nerd, just in terms of black and white, or no matter how old it was. If someone was like, try this, I was like, all right, this could go badly. Let's see what happens.
I miss all the Jim Henson.
Oh,
puppet.
I love those. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's
The
people
storyteller
behind there doing it. It's not all CG. I miss them.
And when they did all the fairy tales, do you remember when Jim Henson did all
the storyteller and the Greek mythology? I love that. Yeah.
I did too. Those were great.
She liked those. She didn't mind those, but when I had to sit her down and go, okay, this is Star Wars, or this is Indiana Jones or anything like that, she looks at it and she goes, I could see where the special effects is. This is not good. And I'm like,
Yeah. But that's like when we were kids. Did you ever try watching like a Clash of the Titans? Because you really could
yeah.
see the claymation.
Oh,
like it was really, it was. It was like a little painful because you're just like, this is not it. Mom.
But it's like you gotta watch this stuff. It taught you this taught you how to walk so you can run later than you're watching like Jurassic Park and whatnot. Or
She's like, I already know how to run. I'm fine.
She's like, I'm fine. I don't need that. I don't need
I can learn it from the phone. The phone will tell me.
Just watch the
There's
YouTube
a wiki
video.
article. I'm okay.
Yeah.
So our closing questions, because we're a little bit over. Okay, so what's next for you? Do you have any fun projects you're working on? And I hope, Aminah, that you can tell us a little bit about the Robin Hood, because I really want to know.
Yeah, I'm working on a reclaimed classic, which I'm so pumped about. So it's Robin Hood from the perspective of a Muslim girl on like the other side of the Crusades. So it's fun getting to do like a third crusade retelling from like an Arab perspective and a Muslim perspective. So that's been really fun. And there's like a lot of like really heavy history, obviously, and then getting to kind of like find the fun in being a teen girl and finding that voice while writing has been really rewarding and really getting me through this pandemic and lockdown. So yeah, that's what I'm working on next. It's my first historical, so that's really cool. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah. What about you, Roselle? What are you working on?
The third, I consider these three books kind of like in the same universe. It's very whimsical and very hopeful. The one that I'm working on now is called Sophie Goes Lonely Hearts Club, and it's about a matchmaker a novice matchmaker coming back from Shanghai after she's done her studies. And she's tasked to match these 7 old grumpy Chinese bachelors.
That's awesome.
Oh my god.
That's awesome.
Oh my gosh, I love it. I love it because I just finished watching the Netflix Indian matchmaking.
Oh my gosh. See, that's the thing. I'm watching that. I was watching that and I'm like, okay, like the way that I portray matchmaking in my book, it's a little bit more modern. Like there's a bit of a modern
like
take.
Millionaire Matchmaker. I remember when that was on.
Oh my gosh, I remember that show. That just took me back.
I love stuff with matchmaking. It's so interesting because it's not anything that's in my world.
Why is it so satisfying to watch someone do that too? Like watch 2 people and just be like, you 2, and you're like, I have to know more. I have to watch you go.
Like, I'm calling it.
What is that voyeurism? Yeah.
I think it's also the experimental aspect of it. Like the thing that makes me laugh so hard is when Seema is sitting here going, oh my God, she is such a pain in the neck. One of her clients, she's like, what is wrong with her? She's so picky. What is the But it's really funny how like with matchmaking, you're looking at 2 people who you think on paper look good together, but you can never ever account for like the chemistry or whatever it is that happens when they get together. Yeah.
There's a little bit of magic in there.
So is everyone gonna get matched in the book?
She's trying to match the seven old men, and I'm using a bit of
is there like a Snow White and the 7 Dwarves element to what you're doing?
There's a joke in there. There is a joke in there about that, and it's kind of I'm using magical realism in that she could see red threads. Like
oh my gosh!
In Chinese, in Chinese culture, the red thread is supposed to tie 2 soulmates together, and the thing is, she can see these threads, and she can see how they could be matched. And she, aside from the older cranky men, she does have like other clients that she'll see, and she's just trying to establish her reputation and her career. And yeah, it is interesting because as a matchmaker, you kind of are a bit of a therapist and a psychologist on the side as well when you're dealing with people.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. I'm really excited. Okay, and our last question is, where can readers find you, and where can they get your books?
I am at Aminah Mae, I think almost everywhere, but I'm mostly on Instagram, and mostly on Instagram, it's my cats and also my current research. So if you're into like history right now, that's what I've been doing. So yeah, come hang out on Instagram. I think my books are available everywhere bookstores are sold, but try to find them at your local indies like Thrift Bodice or bookshop.org. Well, you can also pick, and also the local library system is great. And I know there's tons of copies around. That's the beauty of my books being Junior Library Guild Association or Junior Library Guild selections, is that they're in a lot of libraries, which is wonderful.
For me, I'm mostly on Twitter, but I do post on Instagram, but it's at Roselle Writer in both places. I post my cat, just like Aminah, my fuzzy white cat, food, usually food, cats, like my art, and I was gonna say, like, Natalie Tan and Vanessa also got the junior library thing.
Yeah.
And
awesome! I'm sorry I missed that.
That and this one got the August pick for library reads as well.
Yay!
Which
Love
is
those.
like, I love libraries. It's great. Rip Bodice has my signed booklets, as well as a select indie stores also on my site have the signed bookplates. And I don't know if you've seen them. They're like, they have little dumplings and whatnot on them.
Aww.
So yeah.
Oh yeah, and if you do order from the Rip Bodice, I'm happy to send signed book plates up to them because it's local, so it's really easy.
I'll add that to the info. And both of your websites, the links are in the description of this video, so people can just click and they'll be there. Wonderful. Okay, so thank you again for joining us. Thank you so much to our wonderful authors for spending time with us today. It's been wonderful. And Cathy has a little bit of info on where she can find the books in our summer virtual activity challenge.
So as both of the authors mentioned, you can pre-order their books at the Rip Bodice bookstore, or if you don't want to go there, you can go online at www.rippedbodicela.com. Anyway, and then also the library is still doing our summer virtual activity challenge. It's going on now through August 16th. All you have to do to participate is go to the website, sign up, log in, do digital prizes. And if you go to our website, we also have a list of free digital resources that you can access while you're at home. And if you look at our internet
I think you're breaking up, Cathy, a bit.
No, we've lost you again.
It's unstable, but you can check our calendar also. Hello.
Basically, go on our website and you can find all the info.
Yeah.
So thank you, and
There
we hope
go.
to see you again Tuesday, July 28th, right here on Facebook for our next virtual author chat featuring graphic novel authors Yuko Ota and Anand Hirsch. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Bye.